The next thing we are going to learn is variables in Python. In Python, a variable is a name that is used to temporarily store some data in computer's memory. Variables can store values such as username, email, age, and so on. Let's say we want to print this value using a variable. To declare a variable, type a name for the variable, followed by an equal sign, followed by the value which we want to assign to the variable. Now, in the print function, we can use the variable name age instead of the value itself. In this case, we say that the variable age gets assigned the value 17. Apart from code readability, one of the advantages we get with using variables is reusability. This means that variables can store values that need to be used multiple times, reducing redundancy and making code easier to maintain. As a side note, you can see that a Python program runs from top to bottom. Variables in Python can also store other types of data, such as floating point numbers, strings, Boolean, or any other data types. In Python, the value of a variable can be updated by simply assigning a new value to it. For example, we can update the value of the variable age by assigning a new value to it. Note that the value of the variable age before this line is 17, and after the execution of this line is 20. This can be further demonstrated using the following example. Here the values of a and b are 10 and 5.5 respectively. Now let's update the value of b to a plus b. We can now see that the final value of b is 15.5. Note that the data types of a and b are different, as a is an integer and b is a floating point number. However, as we can see, an int and a float can still be added together to give a result with float data type. This brings us to dynamic typing. Python is a dynamically typed programming language, which means that the type is inferred from the value you assign to it. And you don't have to declare the type of a variable when you create it. In Python, variables are not bound to a specific data type. Instead, variables can hold any type of data by just reassigning a variable to another data type. Let's see this with an example. Here, price is a variable containing a floating point number, and you can see that the type of the variable is float. Now, you can reassign the value of the price variable to an integer, say 20, and you could see that the type of the variable price is now changed to int. Similarly, if you reassign the price variable to a string, the type of the variable price now becomes string. Let's discuss about case sensitivity of variables. Variable names in Python are case sensitive. So, a variable name and another variable name with capital N are completely different from each other. Similarly, in this example, both of these variables for Py are different from each other. Now, let's look at what are the rules for naming variables in Python. Variable names in Python should start with a letter or an underscore, followed by letters, digits, or underscores. Let's look at a few examples. The variable names should start with a letter, meaning that the first character in the name of a variable must be a lowercase or uppercase alphabet, or an underscore. The second character onwards in the name of a variable can be letters, digits, or underscores. Please note that the first character in a Python variable can't be a digit. It's only allowed from second character onwards. If there are multiple words in the name of a variable, you can use underscore to separate the words to make it more readable, as spaces are not allowed in variable names. You can also use camel-cased variable name, as shown here, to separate words. However, the most common and recommended convention for variable names in Python is to use snake case, where the words are separated by underscore. Now, let's look at some examples of invalid variable names in Python that violate the naming rules mentioned above. This one is invalid because a Python variable cannot start with a number. The other variables mentioned here are invalid because they contain special characters other than underscore. Moreover, these are also examples of invalid Python variables, as they are part of the reserved keywords in Python, which cannot be used as variables. That would be all for variables in Python.